Hi everyone, I'm Susan Reese and welcome to Philosophy of Everything. So what happens when we live in a world where fear is monetized and in a world where our nervous systems are wildly dysregulated at mass scales and the brand strategy of sorts is to do just that? And what happens when we live in a world that no longer values philosophy, a materialist world? And most importantly, what happens when these three things collide? Because that's exactly what we're seeing today at a mass scale. Fear is being monetized. Let's start there. The average person uses social media at least 2.5 hours a day. The way that the algorithms work on social media, as well as the propagandists in general, is to stir up the biggest reaction within each of us. And the number one way to do that is fear. And it's not just an idea, it's in our biology, it's built into us. We have the same nervous systems as our ancestors. So even though most of us are frankly living more comfortably than we're probably willing to admit, and we're sitting at desks and we're reading the news on our iPhones, we still have the nervous systems of our ancestors who are out in the wild trying to survive and having their survival being threatened all day and all night. We have that same system, and this has evolved us biologically to develop a negativity bias in our brains. This means that we are able to find negative experiences, emotions, threats to our survival, either real objective threats or subjective perceived threats, etc. We're able to find them and to feel them by design without even thinking about it. Now, just to put this into context on a personal or individual level, this negativity bias is the reason why practices like gratitude are so important and have been proven to be so effective. It's because of this bias. So where these negative experiences go into our brain by default, we have to hold experiences of the opposite, so positive experiences, ones of joy, etc. We have to hold those ones in our conscious awareness for longer in order for them to register the same way as negative ones. So that's the individual. But imagine if all the individuals aren't practicing that way, and now we have a mass collective that is stuck in negativity bias. Social media is designed to stir up that within you because that's how you stay online, and that's what drives the most engagement. The issue isn't just social media companies, though. It's the politicians, the political parties, the foreign bad actors who frankly have far more strategic ways to fight wars than the US does. Instead of just dropping bombs, they are fighting via psychological warfare. There is an insane number of fake bots across social media sites. We know this. And we know that foreign bad actors have had plans to use psychological warfare to get us to hate each other, to tear us apart from the inside out. And that's exactly what's happening. The politicians and the political parties love to do this because if you can be stuck in a fear response, you are a pawn. You are a pawn that can be used. So whether it is a corporation trying to sell you something, a social media company trying to get you to be on their app longer, an influencer who wants to get the most engagement, or a politician who wants you to vote for them, fear is the number one way to control you. Our biggest binds and our biggest chains are that of our emotional body. When the politicians, for example, are able to hijack our amygdala via fear, by making us find fear in quote-unquote the other, what they're doing is priming us to be in this threat response, which means that they don't have to do a goddamn thing. They don't have to find a goddamn solution. All they have to do is to get individuals to hate the other side more. If you hate the other side more than you have your own personal values, then you don't need them to do anything. You'll still vote for them. And that's exactly what both sides are doing in different ways at different times, but they're both doing it. They're strategies. And they're effective strategies. So this negativity bias and this threat response, it's our amygdala in our brain. But there's another part of our brain in the front called the prefrontal cortex. And that is the part of the brain where things like moral reasoning, mindfulness, presence, compassion, and problem solving take place. So if you are in a threat response, you're not doing any of those things. You're not solving problems. You are not morally reasoning, which means this idea of righteousness is self-serving. You are actually just trying to survive. If you hate the other side, quote unquote the other side, whoever that is to you, if you're putting people in groups, these are means of survival. If you have black and white thinking, this is a trauma response. It's because you are in threat response, because your amygdala has been hijacked. True compassion, True problem solving, true moral clarity, true critical thinking is all in the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. And it means you cannot be in this black and white thinking. You cannot be in a threat response. You cannot be in a state of constant fear and outrage. That is reactivity. That is not helpful. It is reactivity. So how can we prevent this from happening to ourselves? In the beginning, I also mentioned a world without philosophy. So let's talk about that for a moment, because this is another prime reason of why this is happening in the first place. So yeah, the social media companies, the politicians, the foreign bad actors, they can try to use fear against us, but at the end of the day, it's us that allows it to happen or not. And this is where philosophy comes in. We live in a world that no longer values philosophy. And this means a world without things like values, morals, ethics, wisdom, and perhaps most importantly, a world without meaning. If you don't have your own personal philosophy, that means you don't have meaning. It also means you don't have a moral compass to follow. You're seeing how you become such easy prey, such an easy target to be used as a pawn in this larger system. No meaning breeds nihilism, and nihilism breeds destruction, and that breeds hate. And this is a self-destructive force, and it is a self-feeding force that creates a cycle over and over again. It's important to remember what activism actually is and what it's supposed to be, rather. Activists are supposed to be seeking change. So to seek change means you believe in change. You believe people can change. This means you believe in people. You believe in humanity. You believe in your country. You believe in the community you serve. So if someone hates any of those things, they are not trying to seek change. They are instead just stuck in threat response, and they are trying to survive. And that is no one to follow. Use your discernment. There's a difference between activists trying to seek change rooted in values and moral clarity, and someone online who's really loud complaining. Those are two very different things. Now, an argument I've heard many times is that the reason in today's day and age so many people are falling victim to political identity or ideological identity or tribal identity, and thus tribal outrage instead of moral clarity, is because we in the West have largely abandoned the religions. So politics is now substituting for the religions. I think this is a misunderstanding, because in the past we had the same issue. The issue then was, instead of clinging to political and ideological identity, people clinged largely to religious identity. But it manifested the same way. This is a pattern humans know all too well. It is a pattern of hate, a pattern of violence, a pattern of self-destruction. But looking at the bigger picture and seeing how humans have migrated from needing a religious identity to needing a political and ideological identity actually reveals the true problem. The true problem is that individuals do not have their own personal identity. They do not have their own personal philosophy, rather, because identity is the last thing you want. You instead want to be guided by a larger force, your own personal philosophy, your own personal values. If you have this, you are rooted, you are deeply rooted. So when you're out there on social media or in the political climate, whatever it is, you are not so easily used as a pawn. Your amygdala is not so easily hijacked, and your access to your prefrontal cortex is clear. There's a difference between values and conditioning, and the number one way to spot it is if they are transcendent. So values, like philosophy at large, is transcendent. It's not dependent on time and space. What I mean by that is they should apply no matter where and no matter when. So if you were to wake up tomorrow in a completely different body and a completely different culture, your values should still apply. If your values only apply to your quote-unquote demographic, to your identity, to your time period, to your culture, but not that one, then they are pure conditioning. It's not values. Each of us cannot outsource our inner void to something outside of us. We cannot outsource our inner void to a religious institution, to a political institution, to a faux leader, to a trend. We will always be used. We will always be a pawn in someone else's strategy. And the number one way we will be used is our emotions. We will be manipulated into convincing ourselves we're righteous when we're really just stuck in a trauma response. And we are becoming exactly what we hate. You will always become what you hate because you hate. By nature of you hating, you are now a hateful person yourself. Do you see the problem? Again, hate is a self-destructive and self-feeding force. Moral clarity is the only thing that can truly guide you. and you will never find it in something outside of you. You have to find it in the source of moral clarity, in the source of philosophy, in the source of wisdom, and that is within your heart. And your heart is not concerned with what other people think. It's not concerned about, am I saying the things that make me look righteous? Your heart is so rooted in actual compassion, in true compassion, in actual moral clarity, not trauma responses, that those things don't matter. You're able to see the truth for what it is, and you are able to stand firmly rooted in a world that wants nothing other to bind you up using your emotions as chains. Are you willing to be curious instead of hateful? Are you willing to be compassionate instead of righteous? Again, there's so many differences in these qualities. We have to ask ourselves, do we really care about the things we claim to care about? Are our values really ours? Or are we just manipulated by curated rage? For example, if you claim to care about mass shootings, are you only concerned about the ones in schools that are presented to you to care about on the news? Or are you concerned about the other ones too, the ones that we're told to not think about? Are you concerned with wars, or only the wars that have been curated for you because they have very particular narratives? Are you concerned when your quote-unquote political party or team did something in the past? Are you only concerned when quote-unquote the other team is doing the same exact thing now? Are you truly valuing these things, or are you just being a pawn in someone else's game? We outsource to identities when we need to try to survive. When you're not trying to survive, when you're operating from a true space of moral clarity, you no longer need those things. You're able to navigate complex challenges and find complex solutions to them through a space of curiosity, a space of moral clarity, and grounded in true values and your own personal guiding wisdom and philosophy. So I remind you to use your discernment when you're confronted with others who are just putting people into groups. That's always a red flag that they are stuck in fear response. They are stuck in their amygdala. There is no space for more clarity there. That's it for now. Thank you so much. Take care, and I'll see you next time.